Yeah, so I ended up, kind of diving full-fledged into the wild game scene, after being in a bodybuilding, weightlifting hardcore and just cramming in, all the calories I could. It didn't matter where the protein source came from. I did that all the way until I was probably right before the Coast Guard, in all honesty. And then I did that a little bit in the Coast Guard, started taking some extra culinary training, and then kind of saw where, better ingredients were coming from, like nicer farms, and just kind of saw the quality difference. And then once I started diving into that deeper and deeper, I just, it was like, man, the cleanest meat that I can get my hands on is this wild game. I wanted that to be my main source of nutrition and food.
I don't know about you, but I always carry a knife. It doesn't matter what the situation is, I'm always reaching for a blade. Whether I'm out hunting in the backwoods, fishing on lakes and rivers, or simply cutting rope at camp. And when I need a tool, I want something that's quality, durable, and handmade right here in the USA. I know that's something you're looking for as well, so go to maloneknives.com and get yourself something that's going to last and look damn good too. This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today, my special guest is Larry White. He is Wildgame Gourmet, wildgamegourmet.com. Larry, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's the first cool day of the year out here. I'm up in Northwest Ohio, and the temperature dropped from like 90 to 60, and I'm loving it. I love the cooler weather.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, we're just coming in tomorrow.
Yeah. That means good time for deer to start moving around up here, which is really what I'm excited for. So, you got a pretty awesome background. You've been a chef. You're into hunting and fishing and all of the awesome stuff that brings food to the table, which I think one of my favorite things is just getting my own food. It's so cool and it's so novel for a lot of people in this day and age because we just don't do it anymore. And there's a whole culture of people who have grown up doing it. But I find a lot of people like me who are kind of rediscovering this tradition that we've kind of gotten away from over the years. So where did that begin for you? Where did you get your hunting and fishing passion?
From my dad and some uncles. They had me out on the water probably since I was like 4 or 5 fishing, and then got into small game hunting when I was younger and kind of led on from there. Awesome.
So what was it like coming up being a chef? Because everything I've ever read or heard about says that's a pretty difficult lifestyle for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's depending on, it changes depending on where you work and, what environment or whatnot. But like the restaurant industry in general, I would say, probably 80% of those environments are going to be pretty tough unless you just have a unique environment. Whether you're working for a hotel, like a mom and pop restaurant, they're all going to be different. For the most part, catering, I've done that before. That's a little bit, it's hectic, but it's a little bit less, chaotic. Mm. But yeah, man, they all have their ins and outs, man.
Yeah. So you had some background doing some cooking for the Coast Guard as well. That had to be quite the experience because I don't think people normally equate like the military and food kind of going together hand in hand.
No. Yeah, it was, luckily the Coast Guard has, there were a lot of, terrible cooks. And when I first got in, I had, I was on that path to be a terrible cook because I had a terrible boss. But their culinary school is pretty awesome, man. It's out in wine country in Petaluma, California.
Wow.
So yeah, they set you up for success. They even have school after you graduate the original the first culinary school. You can go back and get extra training to kind of fine tune your skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what made you make that decision to kind of shift from that maybe traditional chef school lifestyle, working the grind in these restaurants to kind of getting back to your roots, like it says on your website, just like hunting wild game, cooking wild game? What made that decision happen?
So I ended up, kind of diving full fledged into the wild game scene, after being in a bodybuilding, weightlifting hardcore and just cramming in, all the calories I could. It didn't matter where the protein source came from. I did that all the way until I was probably right before the Coast Guard, in all honesty. And then I did that a little bit in the Coast Guard, started taking some extra culinary training, and then kind of saw where, better ingredients were coming from, like nicer farms, and just kind of saw the quality difference. And then once I started diving into that deeper and deeper, I just, it was like, man, the cleanest meat that I can get my hands on is this wild game. I wanted that to be my main source of nutrition and food.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at now. I mean, it's a lot of work to get food that way. I mean,
yeah.
I would say, I'm in the Midwest, so we don't have a lot of the giant, awesome animals as much as like some of the out west states, and I don't really have the capacity to travel like that and hunt like that at this point in my life. So I'm pretty happy with getting deer and fish a lot because I live on the Great Lakes, so it's like unlimited access to fish and small game deer, and I'm gonna hopefully be doing my first bird hunt this year, which I'm pretty excited about. And I think it's really a daunting task for a lot of people, but it's like, for me, instead of spending my weekends, like partying and chilling or whatever, I'm out there on the water or out there, in the woods, depending on the time of the year. How much do you spend regularly on, like, time-wise, getting your own wild game for your personal consumption?
I would say just for, I'm trying to break this down, probably for deer, I would say I'll spend maybe 30 days in the field, and then not as many for pigs. It's just depending on if I got people in town or whatever, probably 10 to 15 days. And then for birds, maybe 10 days. So yeah, I would say 50 to 60, somewhere around there, not counting fishing.
So like 2 months of your year is dedicated to getting your own food. And I think that is a huge factor that people don't take into account, because last year I was able to go out. I got a decent sized buck, and it's just my wife and I. So it held us out until a few weeks ago, really. I think I got like a roast left, and that's about all I got. So what would you suggest to people who kind of want to go that route? How do they go about it if, like, a guy like working a 9 to 5 that doesn't get to go out and hunt all the time? What do you suggest? Because it is difficult, but I'm one of them. It is possible to do.
Yeah. If you can avoid the big buck craze, that's going to put you light years ahead. Try to pick some good sources to learn some woodsmanship. And if you don't care about bucks, man, if you can learn some woodsmanship, within a year, you could be, a doe slayer. If that's the correct term. Yeah. It wouldn't, to put meat on the table with does, depending on where you live and how much you have to travel, I don't think it would take much. But if you start getting into the world of, like, aging bucks and all that stuff, that'll hurt your time quite a bit. If I took bucks out of the equation, I could probably get everything I needed to get done. And probably not 20 days off, so probably 40 days I could be stocked up for the year.
I've seen a lot of stuff online too about the big buck craze. And I don't know, what's your thoughts on that? Because I hunt, I got a buck last year because that was the opportunity I had in the time frame I had. I didn't miss a shot on a doe. I just blew it basically. And I am the kind of person that's I'm totally okay with whatever. I'm there for food. I don't have this ego about, I don't need this giant buck in my hanging on my wall. I really do it for the food. And there's a lot of arguing online, which I think, in my opinion, is really ridiculous about you should only kill these giant things. And one of the arguments I saw a guy make recently that I really was put it in perspective for me. He was like, it's legal and it's ethical. What is the argument? So what are your thoughts on that? I don't mean to put you on blast, but.
It's whatever that makes you happy. I just don't like the whole, putting other people down. And for me, people can say that I chase bucks, but in all honesty, 90% of it for me is the journey, being in the woods, and the difficult challenge. If you reverse the roles and made the does the ones harder to kill, I would 100% 10% be out there roaming the woods looking for does. I don't really care about, the antlers. If I did dive into it and it's trying to help the herd or something, maybe age class, if somebody, told me like, hey, you've only got X amount of deers on this property, you're on this amount of acreage, you got to take out whatever, I would listen to them. But other than that, man, for me, it's just, just being out there working hard and, fulfilling the journey of hunting, I guess.
I love that mindset too, of like just putting in some hard work for the sake of putting in hard work. And I find a lot that is also lacking nowadays. Like I see people my age and it's just like, I used to be like really overweight and stuff as a kid. So now like as an adult, I really work hard to like try and be in the best shape because I love being outdoors. And a lot of that stuff is really difficult. Like if you want to climb a mountain or you want to go hunt in the backwoods and you have to hike 2 miles in, like that's hard. That stuff is difficult. So what kind of drives you to keep yourself in good shape and stuff? Because it is like, people think it's easy for some people, and it's a grind every day for me, man.
Man, I just feel better, I've been into weightlifting and fitness, since probably since like 2002. Mm-hmm. Everything's changed. I'm not trying to get, jacked anymore. It's all about, just having muscle quality and endurance and some strength. But, and once you find some fitness and you lose it, that is a huge motivator because once you finally figure out what feeling and shape feels like, you don't want to go back. And then hunting season, if you do take it seriously, if you go into hunting season out of shape and you're hunting a lot, by the time January rolls around, man, you're going to be hurting. Yeah. For me, my mindset is switched. Like I ramp up my workouts pretty hard before hunting season now. Just in case I do kind of slack off in the area because I'm hunting more.
Life is hard, and we're out here doing larger-than-life things, whether it's pushing ourselves physically in the outdoors or mentally at work or in the podcast studio. Absolute Aid is here to help you focus, recover, and stay calm during your most intense moments. Absolute Aid, created by nature, made with science, for those who seek to do more. It's really funny to me because it all comes together. If this is a lifestyle that you want to take part of, like it all becomes about food. It becomes about, endurance. It becomes about fitness, and it becomes about, like educating yourself as well on a lot of issues. And it's just kind of like becoming more well-rounded. Like I don't necessarily say I enjoy like working out all the time, but I think to myself, like if you want to go hunting this season, you got to carry out a potentially, 100-pound animal out of the woods. Like you got to be in shape for that, or it's going to take you twice as long. It's going to be brutal. And I think like a lot of people are coming into that mindset. There's so many pages out there that are all of the above. And when I was younger, for me, it was like you said, it was all calories in, calories out. It was like, I don't care what it is, I'm going to eat it. And like now that I'm getting older, I just don't find that working for me anymore. It's like, I got to really eat healthy and focus on nutrition because I'm not 19 and I can't go out on like a 30-mile hike and just like eat Twizzlers, like you gotta have some quality food. So on the lines of food, what do you think makes people so squeamish about wild game? Because I know so many people who would just not even consider trying it, even though it's some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
It's just become so normal, and it's totally random. I was just thinking about this earlier. I think about random food stuff all the time, but I bet you could take an average person, probably even hunters, and just kind of throw them a trick question, be like, hey, let me ask you 2 weird questions. So be like, hey, would you right now, would you grab a glass of breast milk, human breast milk, and drink it? 99% would say no. And then you'd be like, hey, would you drink a nice cold glass of chocolate milk? Cow's milk. And they would say, yeah. And to me, that's not that I want to drink breast milk, but if you really dig deep and think about it, it's weird. You know what I mean? Why would you like want to source out cow milk? You know what I mean? But so it's kind of like that. So everybody's so used to sourcing out and eating cows or domestic pigs since they were born. It's just kind of ingrained in their heads. And if they do try it, it's a lot of people can blame it on field care, which most of the time it plays a factor, but I would say a lot of people are just either overcooking their steaks or undercooking like their tender dishes. but I would say most of those probably overcooking the steaks because that's where you get like the tough livery taste that most people aren't going to like if they're used to eating corn-fed beef.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. Because when I got my deer last year, I mean, I pretty much had steak and eggs every single day until I ran out. I mean, it was like I was just stoked to wake up and eat it because it was like some of the best quality food. And I've never really understood the term when people say their deer tastes gamey. Like, I've never understood what that meant because I've like tried to sit there and eat it like no seasoning, no nothing. And I'm just like, I don't know what that means. I don't understand.
No, I mean, to me, when I first started, after I graduated high school, when I started trying to food, so I grew up in the country. We didn't really expand our palates much. But like the first time I ate lamb was the first time it came to mind. Oh, this is gamey. Like I've never wanted the same thing. I've never eaten deer or wild pigs. Like, oh, this is gamey. But yeah, lamb. If you're going to say something's gamey, and that would be the one.
Yeah, I just don't like. People say that when they find out that it's deer or something, they say it afterwards. And I'm like, you would have had no clue if I wouldn't have said anything. And one of the things that I'm, working towards myself is trying to use more of the game than just the meat, like the organs and stuff. And that can be a little squeamish even for me. And I'll pretty much eat anything. Like,
yeah.
What's the way to get around that if you're trying to introduce that in your own diet? Because like I've eaten the heart and I got buddies that hunt, they've been hunting their whole lives and they're like, oh, I'm not touching that stuff. And I'm like, honestly, it tastes fine. Like I tried it for the first time this year. I cooked the heart and I, removed all the stuff, the nasty stringy stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I tried to not like it just so I could like get myself off the hook, but it tasted fine. It tasted like another steak. It was a little tougher, but I thought it tasted great. So like liver and anything else, how do you prepare that to make it more palatable, I guess?
It's probably bad. I mean, liver more so than any other cut. If you overcook liver, I mean, it's going to get really dense. The flavor is going to become strong and it's just going to be hard to eat for almost anybody. Cooking that, to medium, mid-rare liver is going to help out quite a bit, or incorporating it into a sausage. That's usually about the easiest. And heart, I mean, you're probably almost always, depending on if you marinate or brine it, going to have some kind of like iron hint to it.
Yeah.
But overcooking that, same thing. If you're not a texture person, you overcook it. I mean, it's going to be like almost chewing on a rubber bouncy ball.
Yeah. But I cooked it medium rare and I didn't have any problem with it. I didn't try the liver because I just like don't know what to do. So I'm glad I found like a website like yours, like because you have tons of recipes on there. And what's like the weirdest wild game you've ever eaten? Like it doesn't have to be specific, like it can be organ, whatever, this part, that part, any animal, I don't care. Like just if you had to say like this is the weirdest thing I ever eaten, what would that be?
Weirdest. I mean, originally weirdest, like not to me at all now, would probably have to be caul fat. When I first started eating caul fat, but I grew up eating a lot of Mexican food, so I've eaten tripe a lot. And that was probably like, in domestic, animals, that was like my first foot in the door of eating weird stuff. But I would say wild animals would be caul fat.
And like, I think with Meat Eater and stuff, they brought up a lot of attention to caul fat and things of that nature. When I was gutting my deer that I got last season, I was like trying to find it, but I didn't really know what I was looking for. Like, where is the caul fat on the deer?
I mean, you'll see it around the stomach. I mean, if you have to get real close. If it's in the dark, try to get a light, to look like a spider web, like a thin membrane. So if you can find that spider web, that's where it is. You have to be just delicate, getting that off.
And what do you generally cook with that?
I've seen it used in multiple ways, but my favorite way is to either make like a sausage patty or a burger patty and wrap that up and sear that off and get it crispy, or to have like a shank or something that you slow cook and braise, get that really tender, and then wrap that up and then sear that. So then you got like, double layers of flavor.
That sounds so good. I need to try that. Hopefully I can get another deer this year, and that would be amazing. And, I find that the deeper I get down this rabbit hole, the more I love cooking. Like, I'm not a great chef or anything. I'm kind of like the meat plus fire and like a little bit of salt and pepper like does me just fine. Like, I don't have this like amazing palate or anything, but the stuff that you're putting out on your website with like dishes you can make, they just look astounding. So like, what are some of your favorite things to pair, like especially since I'm out of the Midwest? I mean, everything's deer and fish up here, and I catch, you know, your general fish. You get your pan fish and you get perch and stuff like that. What's something to pair with fish? Because like I was just talking to my buddy earlier today, like I catch fish and eat them on principle because like I'm trying to live a more, you know, a lifestyle based around wild game, but I don't really like fish that much generally. Like
Okay.
I've only had it fried until I was an adult, essentially, like your fish fry. You throw some perch or bluegill in a fryer and you call it a day. Walleye. What's something that would go good with your general fish species that you can catch in pretty much any lake? Because I want to try and expand on that, because like deep frying fish isn't really the healthiest way to eat anything. I'm trying to get more, you know, healthier.
I would say for somebody, I like it either way. For somebody that doesn't really care for fish too much and you don't want to eat it fried, I would expand your world of like different kinds of salsas. Not necessarily, you know, your run of the mill, just red salsa from the grocery store, but you know, just any kind of like pico that has any citrus or fruit or anything in there. I mean, it's going to give you a texture difference. Plus the acidity is going to kind of, if there is any kind of hint of fish, or if you could pick that up, that's going to cut that. Some fresh herbs, you know, if you have grass-fed butter, you know, if you like that in your diet, a little bit of that is really great on there. And as far as like a mild flavor that pairs really well, is we do a lot of like cauliflower puree. Mm-hmm. And if you cook that just right, I mean, I've fooled probably at least 20 people into thinking that was like a creamy mashed potatoes. Like, you won't know the difference. And
really?
that goes really well with roasted fish.
Awesome. I'll have to try that because, you know, like we get a lot of walleye fishing going up here. Out on the Maumee River is like one of the walleye capitals of the world from what everybody around here says. I don't know if other people from the rest of the country would agree with that, but I mean, we get some serious walleye out here all the time, and they're good. I like them, but it's just like, I didn't grow up eating a ton of fish, so it was just like trying to expand your palate is difficult, I think, and especially in America, because we eat like the same three things. We eat like pork, beef, chicken, and that's it. Like, those are our main staples. So I love like trying new things. Is there a dish that you find that's like difficult to cook of wild game across the board? Is there something that's like, man, this is a really tough nut to crack with wild game food?
Not really. I mean, it's really would come down to a technique, because it, you know, they vary so much. It's like if you try to give somebody a recipe for a shoulder or a turkey leg or a goose leg, you know, they're not all going to be the same. You know, like most beef recipes are going to be on the mark, you know, accurate wise, like 90 to 95%. You know, wild game can change a lot more than that. So it'll come down to a technique. You know, you just can't really ever specifically nail down a time for cooking. You just have to monitor it and tinker and check it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I think, you know, I think I get the basics of cooking overall. Like, I usually make food and I'm like, this is okay. Like, this is pretty good. I like this. Whereas like, I don't know, you go to a restaurant sometimes and people think that food is this complicated thing, like this mystery, like sauces and things. And I haven't found that to be true. And I'm thinking, like, if my stupid ass can cook this stuff, like anybody can cook it, man. So like, I don't know. I wish more people would give it a try, but I think it's such a complicated rabbit hole because for a lot of people, the hunting part of it, it's in and of itself is a difficult challenge.
Yeah.
And then usually I would say on average, everybody I know at least, it just becomes burger and steak. Like 99% of people, wild game becomes burger and steak. So, you know, I've been trying to get into butchering it myself instead of just dropping it off at a place, which is convenient. You don't have to really do that much. You can pay a couple $100 and it's good. What do you do to learn more about butchering? Because I get the animal apart, I get the hide off, And then it's just like all these different cuts. And I'm like, I don't know which is which. Like, how do you go about that as your average Joe like me trying to learn this stuff? Is there any like books that you recommend or websites or anything? Because that, for me, that's the hardest part, is differentiating the cuts.
Yeah, there's a book in my house right now. I could run in and grab it, but it's probably one of the number one butchery books. And I think it covers lambs, pig, maybe something else. But anyway, it covers everything like very thoroughly. And it basically, you can translate it over to venison. But yeah, if you can find any, like, just Google on Amazon butchery books for lamb or something, and just use that. That'll be your easiest way in there. And then, I mean, I would say the thing that stumps most people is probably the hind legs. Mm-hmm. If you can kind of just, be in an environment where you can take your time and break those down slowly. Once you nail that, I mean, it's pretty easy. You're just separating the bottom, top round sirloin, and then you end up finding the eye of round, which looks like almost like a little tenderloin. I mean, once you can figure out how to break those down, like, you're fine, because the really only thing in there that's going to have connective tissue is the sirloin tip. Mm-hmm. So when you roast that, you're still going to have some connective tissue, but everything else is going to be just like a clean piece of meat.
Yeah, that's awesome, because it's such an interesting process. And for me, I find it exciting. I don't know if like other people find that exciting. I might just be the weirdo in this situation. But like, to take an animal from something that was living in the wild, and then you bring it home, and then you just kind of like break it down into its different pieces. I just think like that connection is so primal to like how as humans we were for so long. And I think like it's part of me, because when I was in school, I went for an anthropology degree, and I'm just really interested in human history. And like, now I'm here. Like, it's so much getting in touch with like the primalness of our nature as what we are as a species. Do you feel that when you're doing this stuff? Because I mean, you're doing it a lot more than I am, but.
100%. I mean, now when I take an animal's life as I'm older, I pay more attention and give more respect to the animal than just, I'm excited, but once that respect's over, it's like a switch flips, and it's, it's like a time to get to work. You know what I mean? As far as like getting the animal broken down, it's just, I don't know. It just feels natural. It's not like something I'm dreading, it's just a part of it. And I just feel like it's more natural the older I get. That it's just a part of life. I mean, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense, because that's how I feel too. Like, a lot of people have a problem with the killing the animal part of things, and I've noticed that people that don't hunt specifically. But like, for me, I feel a lot better, and I don't have this like moral high ground or anything because I'm hunting, but it's just like, I feel like I am not hiding, like mercenarying out all the nasty stuff to somebody else. I'm like, if I'm going to eat something, I'm going to do the dirty work myself. Like, I'm not going to hide behind this like grocery store and the plastic wrap. And, I don't know. I feel like it's just so much more the way things should be, if that makes sense. And people argue about that all the time. Like, I'm not a moral whatever. I'm not a philosopher.
Yeah.
It feels right. Like you said, it just feels like the right thing to do. And I think if people tried it, they would understand that, because it's one of those things that you just can't understand until you do it.
Yeah. I mean, and unless you're like spending time on like farms, like within a certain time for like, let's say you go out to eat a steak and then you go to a farm and you do that, multiple times a week. I don't really think that's going to hit home, for a non-hunter, unless you did something like that. Because, you just don't think about it, Before, I was hardcore in the hunting when I was younger. I didn't think about it, I was like, I'm just eating,
Yeah. Well, on another topic, pigs, wild pigs down south. We don't have that problem up here. We don't have like wild pigs tearing up thing. And it really hit home to me when I was in Texas this last year. I was on a ranch with some friends, and we were doing a pig hunt as part of a conference I was at. It's like a conservation podcasting conference I go to down there every year. And all I hear about online, being from Ohio, is, this hog problem, hog problem, hog problem. And it really didn't drive home to me how bad it was. Like, the ranch has this big, lodge, beautiful lodge where everybody can get together, and walked out the back door, and it was like thousands of pig prints. They had to put up electric fence to keep them from like rooting up the grass and the trees in the, like, it was insane. And I'm there to like take a pig and eat it. And even the guides were like, oh, you don't want to eat that stuff. It's disgusting. It's tough. And I'm like, I've heard the opposite from everybody I know who hunts pigs. And I don't know if they just didn't want to take the time to gut them out, because down there they just shoot them and leave them on the ground. Like, and I can understand because there's just so many and it's such a problem. But is wild pig, coming from a chef, is it as bad as people say it is? Because I've only heard it as being good.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, unless you randomly come across, a giant boar that happens to just be rank, which doesn't happen nearly as much as people try to pretend like it does. No, I mean, the meat's going to be 9 times out of 10 a little bit darker, a little bit leaner for the most part. I mean, I've had some random occurrence here lately with the pork having some crazy marbling where I usually don't see it. But it's going to be darker, a little bit leaner, and just a little bit more denser flavor. It's in a good way. It's if you've never had like a heritage breed, domestic, pig, some of those heritage breed pigs are absolutely delicious. They're nothing compared to like, a Smithfield or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's different.
Hey, everybody, thanks for checking out this episode. If you feel like you're getting something out of it, go down in the link below and buy me a coffee. The Aptitude Outdoors podcast is fully self-funded by me. So if you're digging it, I'm just throwing out a tip jar, and I appreciate you listening. Let's dive right back into this episode. This year, I'm going back, next year, I'm hell-bent on bringing some of that home, because that was a big hurdle for me too. I went to Texas and I went fishing with my buddy a few months ago. He owns a charter down there, and I caught a shark, and it was really overwhelming for me to figure out how to travel with food, because I thought it would be this really complicated process. Yeah. And it wasn't at all. It was so wild. I literally had they have those Buc-ee's gas stations down there all over Texas.
Okay.
And I bought one of the zip top cooler for like $20, and we froze the shark the night before, and we put it in the cooler, and I just checked it like a bag on the airplane with a couple of ice packs in there, and that was it. There was no process. That was one of the biggest myths I had, and I made it up in my own head. I was like, they're going to want to do all this stuff. They're like, we don't care what's in here, just check it.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So, it sounds like you've done some hunting all over the country. What's some of the coolest hunts that you've got to do? Because everybody talks about elk all the time. That's like the pinnacle of the hunter world. It sounds like that, and big sheep out west.
Yeah.
What's some of the coolest hunts you've been on?
I mean, I'll have to, just because I like the journey and the pain and suffering. I mean, it would have to be elk, in all honesty. Yeah. The animal is definitely cool, but just what it takes to get close to them and everything. I mean, to me, that's what makes it. But I'm hunting Sika deer next week out in Maryland, so that's going to be kind of cool. So that'll be a first for me.
Are the Sika deer the really small ones?
Yeah, they look like little tiny elk and bugle.
That does sound fun. So are you big into bow hunting, or you like to hunt with a rifle? Does it matter to you?
I do both. I'm slowly getting back into bow hunting a lot more. I was into it when I was younger, but to me, I'm a tinkerer, so I like building different arrow setups. I'm trying to lay off the compound here after deer season and start practicing more with my recurve, shooting pigs and stuff. But yeah, I mean, both, but I prefer bow hunting just because of the challenge.
Bow hunting is very difficult. I actually really have fallen in love with bow hunting, and I'm lucky where I live is out in the country. So, it's like cornfields on all sides of where I live. Yeah. So I could just shoot my heart's content, and I got my first deer with a bow last year, and that felt so awesome. And like, luckily for me, it wasn't disheartening. It was like the perfect shot, which I would love to blame on skill, but I would be very, very hard pressed to say it was luck because it was like, it was a lot of firsts for me. I've hunted with a gun just sitting on the ground, a shotgun with a slug, like, because usually out here the deer will just come up so close if you're quiet and don't screw up the wind on the cornfields. And I don't even really like hunting from a tree stand, but I had a climber, which is the first time using that. I was in a bow. The climbers never seat right on the tree, it seems like. So like my angle was all screwed up. And it never struck me until the moment that I shot the deer that they move. And I was like, I shot a static target for 5 years. And I was like, well, that was stupid. So I tied up a tree in the backyard. I put a rope on it and I got a ball target and I just start swinging it now and shooting at that. That is the funnest thing I do, except for when I lose like a $10 arrow in the cornfield. So how much time do you put in with a recurve? Because down the road, that sounds like something I want to get into because like you said, it's harder. And how is it harder than a compound bow? Because a compound bow is essentially a gun at this point, the way they're just so accurate.
I mean, you basically don't have a back wall, so when you're drawing, there's no draw stop,
Oh.
So, yeah, eventually you would hit one, but then you're going to be overdrawn. But, you just have to have everything has to be almost perfect, you know what I mean? Like the angle of your bow, your draw length, where to stop. A lot of people hunt with a clicker, so how far to draw back. I did a lot of Tom Clum's training.
I don't know what that is.
I can't remember. He's with Rocky Mountain Specialty Gear out in Colorado, but he's one of the best teachers for traditional archery in general out there. I think it's Solid Archery Mechanics. But I've taken his course, and that'll put you light years ahead of getting started because there's so much stuff that I had no idea about. That had me hitting, my target, which is hard for a lot of newcomers. Within the first week, I was like, at least within the realm of the target.
That's awesome. I think as an adult, I think I've finally like found my place in like what I enjoy in life because, with hunting, I think hunting is the root of all of the other things that came along with it. Like I really used to be into backpacking and like, because it was hard. And, I didn't grow up hunting, so it was like all new to me. And I think, and I like to say this a lot, is like, I feel like hunting is the pinnacle of what you can do as an outdoors person. Like, I think it's just so much, you have to have so much knowledge of what you're hunting. You have to have a lot of skill, even with a gun or a bow, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You have to be willing to put in some serious hard work to like learn all of this stuff, and you have to push yourself to be in physical shape, especially if you're doing more backcountry hunting. What advice do you have for maybe people like me who are just getting into it? Like within the last 5 to 6 years is when I've started getting into hunting. How do I go about getting better over time? Because like I don't have a lifetime of experience, and it can be so frustrating. Like there's days you just want to give up because you're seeing people on Instagram nailing deer like left and right, and you're sitting out there for 15 hours and there's just like nothing around. It can be really disheartening for a newcomer.
Boots to the ground is the easiest. If there is a course or somebody that that's offering up free information, just try to take that and then put it to work. You can listen to that stuff for 10,000 hours. You're probably not going to get that much better. You got to take it and go out in the field and just mess up, bump deer, screw up a lot, and just get out there. That's, I wish I had a better answer, but that's it, man. You just got to get out there.
That was the answer I knew you would say, but because that's what everybody says. And it's true. I not to keep ragging on my generation, but I think it's lacking, man. Like people don't want to put in that hard work anymore. And it's the only way to get stuff done. Like it really is the only way. Like you got to put in your hours, you got to put in your reps, you got to put in your time. And it's not always fun. Like it's not always like the dream hunt, So when you talk about, you love to do really hard stuff, it can be a physical challenge, it can be a hunting challenge, whatever. What's the hardest thing that you've ever done?
Oh, that's gonna be a tough one. Man, that's a tough one. That's gonna stump me, man. I guess it would depend on what the activity was. I mean, hardest deer drag. I mean, I could throw that out there.
Let's do it. I got it.
And this was for just a doe. I don't say just a doe, but most people aren't going to do this for a doe.
Yeah.
But I was basically 1.75 miles back. I mean, luckily it was like right off of the logging road, but there's no bikes, it's only foot traffic. And in South Carolina, you're not allowed to break down the animal. You can only gut it. So I literally had to drag that doe, pitch black, 1.75 miles back to my truck, which might not be hard for some people, but man, that was brutal. And that was when, in the hunting season, I wasn't working out anymore. I would basically quit working out at the end of August. I mean, that's probably the hardest drag out that I've had.
Why don't they let you break it down? That is so weird.
I have no idea. I mean,
that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was brutal.
I wonder if it has something to do with so that if you have to a officer, DNR officer or something comes by, maybe that they can verify something, but I've never heard of that. I should probably check on that for here in Ohio. Not that I go super far in the back country out here, but I had a similar story about dragging a deer like that. It was the first deer I ever shot, and he ran super far after I shot him. He was just one hardy guy. And he ran 3 woodlots over. I tracked him all day. And then, of course, it was it was frozen in the morning. And then the sun heated up the ground and it got real muddy and nasty.
Yeah.
I dragged that big bastard 1.5 miles through mud. And I thought I was going to die. I didn't have any water or anything else. I was wearing the cheapest Walmart camo that you could find. It was brutal. So I share that struggle with you. And I wasn't in very good shape at the time either. So it was a rough go, but I love that part of the hunting though, because it's all part of the experience, those are the memories you have. God, that sucked, but now it's fun, So
yeah.
Do you have a preferred wild game that you really love to eat? If you could eat it every day, that'd be your go-to choice.
Probably deer or geese. Which is random. I love duck. I'm not into duck hunting that much. I never really grew up doing much. If I do get ducks, most of the time I've got friends that hunt them a lot and they just give them to me.
That's the best way.
But yeah, the venison and ducks. I like pigs. But that's more of a tinkering thing, which I love the flavor. I love working with, but for that, I like, doing the whole charcuterie thing, I like curing the meats, making different sausages. But as far as eating day to day, would be venison.
Awesome. Yeah, I love venison. What's when you say curing meats, that's another thing that's been very intimidating. For me to I haven't touched it because I've kind of that seems above my skill level. Is it as complicated as it sounds?
It just depends on what you're doing. I mean, some of it is, you have to be on top of it and monitor stuff and take notes. And some of it is almost, just set and forget it. Duck prosciutto or duck ham, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty easy. It's just really salting it and letting it hang. Wild boar pancetta is really easy. Kind of the same thing, just salt and let it hang. That stuff is pretty easy. I would say for any starter, that is the way to go. And then I've got a recipe on my website for a cured venison loin. And that's super easy. You're just salting it for a few days, letting it dry, and you're just slicing it, eating it raw.
Is it just right in your refrigerator, or are you hanging it in a special conditioned area of your house or something? Or
for those recipes, you can do it in a regular refrigerator, as long as you have adequate airflow. Mm-hmm. But if you start getting into the more complicated stuff, you want to monitor humidity, possibly have a fan in there. Then you would have to have probably a separate refrigerator for that.
So I got a bit of a selfish question. I got one deer roast left in my freezer, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to cook it. And I was like, if you could would like point to one recipe on your website or like just a style of cooking it, what would you recommend? Because I've already done your traditional pot roast and all this stuff, and I don't want to make it into jerky because that's like an opt out for me. Like I want to make something really good out of it that people are going to want to try.
I mean, if it's a good sized roast, I mean, if you don't mind putting in a little bit of work, I would say it's. I mean, to me, it's easy, but probably pastrami or something.
Pastrami? Ooh, that sounds like would be fun because I don't know how the hell to make pastrami at all. It'd be a nice challenge.
It's easy. Yeah.
All right. Well, now I'm gonna have to do it. You put me on the spot. You know, I love pastrami too. I think that it's one of like my favorite meats to eat. It's just such a good flavor. That didn't consider my brain ever. What's the process of like making pastrami then out of like a wild deer roast? Like I don't even know where to start with that.
I mean, you're basically brining it like you would a ham,
mm-hmm.
and it also depends on which cut you're going to use. So if you're going to use like a steak from the hind leg, you would make the pastrami and you'd still want to pull it where it's still like medium rare, not more than medium. But you can do the same thing with like a neck, because I've made neck pastrami, or a shoulder. You can do that with a boneless shoulder. But then people have their different ways of doing this technique. But I would braise mine first enough to get it fork tender after the brine, and then throw it in the smoker. A lot of people do it the other way, but for me, it makes it tastes like a wet smoke if you smoke it first and then braise it. And I feel like you get more smoke penetration if you do it my way. But yeah, those are the two ways.
That's why you're a professional. You would know the difference. I probably wouldn't even register on my radar. So I'm going to have to give it a try now because that sounds way better than beef jerky or pot roast, which, I don't have anything against a traditional pot roast. It's great stuff, but I want to like expand my horizons a little bit. One more thing. It looks like you got some online courses. What is this, an outdoor class? I was looking through there. It looks like they got some pretty interesting outdoor stuff. So what can people expect from an online course like that?
It's founded through Go Hunt. So, I mean, they've got their stuff together when it comes to educational hunting. So it's got, I think, like Corey Jacobs and Randy Newberg, Remy Warren,
Mm-hmm.
all those, top guys in the hunting industry are going to be basically teaching, how to call elk, mule deer hunting. I think they've got, John Barkalow on there teaching survival stuff. I mean, they've got a little bit of everything. And then they have, on my side of things, culinary. I think right now it's me and like 3 other folks, and pretty much as the years go by, we're basically going to cover everything possible with wild game, and all that's included. So if you do sign up for it, you get the hunting aspects plus the culinary.
That is awesome. That sounds super cool.
I was saying, I think there's mapping on there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as far as reading maps and whatnot.
That's something that I need to get a little bit better at. That's always a hard thing, and I've done a lot of like survival stuff and researched that for a long time, and it's always like know how to read a map, read a map. And then that's the thing that most people take for granted most of the time, because we have technology now, like you got your Onyx and all these mapping things, but like if your phone dies, you're out of luck, man. Like you better know how to read a map even at a base level. And that's, are you pretty proficient with that? Because I can get around. Like I'm doing an adventure race this weekend. Yeah. Like you have to be able to use a map and a compass, but I would not be able to like navigate to an exacting point on a map, No,
I mean, I'm not a pro by any means, because I don't really ever need it that much unless I do a Western trip. So, I mean, for me to be able to do that and retain it, I mean, I would have to, basically study it to keep up with it multiple times a year. And it's just not happening. I've actually got an iPhone that the only thing that's wrong with it is the speaker. So I've got a brand new iPhone plus this phone and a Garmin InReach that I have with me, which sounds crazy, but it's foolproof. You know what I mean? If the odds of all 3 of those breaking at one time are pretty slim. So I've got backups.
That's smart. I never thought about that. Bust out get a burner phone, throw it in your backpack.
Yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you for having this conversation. I think food is super important nowadays, and I think, you know, there is a movement of people kind of getting back into hunting, and I think that like the food is the next step for a lot of people because they get the game and then they're like, what do I do with it? And so many people, and it's a shame that they just turn all their wild game into chili. And I'm like, there's so much more that you could eat with that, like anything. So I really want to thank you for kind of like showing people like me how that they can make better food, because what's life without good food, you know?
No, I appreciate it, man. I thoroughly enjoy it, man. I love trying to educate people on it.
And before we wrap up, why don't you let people know where's the best place to get a hold of you? I'll put all the links down below in the show notes and everything, but you know, you got an awesome Instagram page and you've got a great website. So just let people know where they can find more.
Instagram is Wildgame Gourmet. Website is thewildgamegourmet.com. You can send me a message through my website or Instagram. I've got a Facebook account, but I'm not really active. I just have it linked up to my Instagram. But those are the two main ways to contact me if you want to get all of it.
All right, Larry. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, man. I appreciate it.